On the podcast this week, why we told 3 clients not to take on any debt whatsoever. Welcome to the Profit Cash Growth Podcast. This is the podcast for 6 and 7 figure business owners who are looking to grow a financially successful business. My co-host Claire Hancock is a finance director, chartered accountant and entrepreneur. And every week I'll be exploring guidance and frameworks designed to help you increase your profits, improve your cash flow and grow your business. So this week you met a celebrity, haven't you, Claire? You met Daniel Priestley this week, didn't you?
So good.
Yeah. You got a chance to have a one-on-one conversation with Daniel Priestley and ask him, one question to help you grow your business. What was the question that you asked him?
I said to him, when you're doing everything that you have just talked about, so we watched a podcast recording live with him. I said, when you're doing all of those things and you're at the point where it's not a case of doing more, it's about quality, what's the next move?
And you're going to keep that to yourself.
I am going to keep it to myself, yes. But yeah, he was very, very, very insightful about what he did. The things that moved the dial from him, that took him from that sort of get going to get good stage.
Yeah. He's such a giver, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or he just gives secrets, gives everything away, just puts it all out there.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah. He was, I don't know, when you see people on podcasts and stuff, obviously you have an opinion of what they say. And when you meet somebody in real life, it just is completely different. Because I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what he says, actually.
Yeah.
Especially his AI.
He moves around a lot. Well, he dropped the whole, like, it's interesting, like now his new, his latest sort of slogan or thing that's happening, they always relate back. Short form, long form, lead form.
Yeah,
which is this: do the short form. The short form content feeds into your long form content. Long form content feeds into a lead form where you get the thing. And
he's got a business around everyone. So
and he's got a business that fits everyone. Yeah.
So the short form is this company called Vidimry, which records videos. Yeah. Then long form is obviously he's got a book writing company and person of influence, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then the lead form is Score App.
He's just...
So he's very, very clever at marketing.
He's clever because he spends half an hour talking about how this is the next thing and this is the way that the world works. And lo and behold, they have solutions that fit into all of
products,
them. Yeah. So it does then make me go, when you're really smart and you join the dots, you're like, yeah, but is it? And because actually when you question it, we know it's not. That you cannot create watches of your long form from your short form. The connection doesn't exist. It just has never worked for us. We spoke to a couple of people afterwards, didn't we, who said the same thing. They went, short form doesn't lead to long form. They're different audiences. Someone that wants to watch 10-second things are not someone that sits and listens for an hour.
It's interesting as well because we've recently launched a new lead form and ironically people are coming back to me and they're like, I've had your book for ages but I've not read it yet. And that's the long form. So what Daniel Priestley is saying is they come on short form like a LinkedIn post or a video or something like that. Then they go to long form, which for us is the book or our blog or the podcast. And then they go to lead form. But actually what we're seeing is short form, lead form.
Yeah.
And then
which I think is how it's always been, but he's kind of like, I've got this book writing thing, son. Anyway, so glad you met him. Glad that was an interesting one for you. The other thing that I came across this week that I thought was really just fascinating was obviously since we've launched our software company, I spend a lot of time talking to people and in masterminds and on webinars to do with other software providers. And this one guy, he's launched lots of different little SaaS companies, and his latest one is all to do with providing a digital SaaS solution for sending faxes.
What?
That's how I felt, right? So he's found a market that needs servicing around the need to send faxes. And this blew me away because I was just like, what? I mean, I'm thinking like how hard it is to get customers in, and we're in an industry that's all about accountants and zero. It's always hard to get customers in a very abundant market. But imagine going to a market where people send faxes. I'm like, how many faxes are sent a day? So do
you know what though? Sorry, what? I'm just going to say something here because my dad used to have his own business. He's now retired. But about 15 years ago, I moved to the area, Leighton Buzzard, and I moved with my dad until I found my own place. And I obviously was like coming up in the accountancy world. I was like, any chance to get stuck in? And so I did his books for him and used to do the invoicing. And I would sit there and do the invoicing, print them off, and then he would fax them. And that was only 15 years ago.
I guess my...
And he would be faxing them to like big customers, maybe like DHL and Volvo and customers like that.
15 years ago, in this 15 years, A lot. I mean, everything's changed in the last 15. I would agree 15, 20 years ago.
Anyway, who's using fax machines, Simon?
No, that wasn't my question. What is the total number of faxes that are sent daily?
Around the world? Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
What's his total addressable market? This is what I thought was it. Because the reality is he's a SaaS company. He can sell anywhere in the world. So he's like, what's his market?
No, it cannot be. It cannot be. I mean, my head tells me it can only be 0. But obviously you're asking me this question, so I think I'm going to be wildly surprised. Like maybe 5 million.
Okay, 17 billion faxes are sent annually worldwide. That's 45 to 50 million a day.
Shut up. No way.
And that's today. So
where?
Well, I don't know, but that's that. So his addressable market is the 45 to 50 million faxes sent a day, and he's trying to create tech that deals with that better for those people.
God.
It's insane, isn't it, to think about it? I love that stat. A lot of this, he said a huge volume of this is things like medical profession. It's hugely fax orientated. So there's just massive industries that dominate this. I don't know the detail, but he talked very sort of anecdotally about it. But that is, by all stretch of the imagination, an addressable market, isn't it? To put products into.
I think it's so ironic that we started with Daniel Priestley, and obviously his podcast career came about him saying how AI was going to take over the world, and yet we're still sending 50 million faxes a day.
Crazy.
Down the telephone line.
I love it. Brilliant. I just love that this week, so I just had to share it with you guys. Anyway, let's move on to this week's news story of the week, which is slightly linked.
Is it?
Well, you said you mentioned AI, so
I sent this to you.
You sent this to me, and it was amazing. Basically, I mean, it wasn't really a news story. It was sort of doing the rounds. But basically, during the World Cup, I don't know anybody saw this advert, but Lego spent.
Who didn't see this advert?
I didn't until you sent it to me. But Lego spent $8 million on a 60-second advert. If you just to visualize it, it's all of the big footballers. So there was Messi, Ronaldo.
Junior.
Who else?
Junior,
Messi,
Mbappe, Messi, and Ronaldo.
Mbappe. And they're all sat around a table, and they're all basically making the Lego version of the World Cup, aren't they?
Yeah. So Lego released this special range. It was a Lego World Cup, and then they had these 4 smaller pieces for each of the 4 players. So it's like a collection piece.
And the news story was called "When Your Ad Is So Good, It's Unbelievable That You Have to Prove It's Not AI."
Because they got these 4 people, world-class figures, best in the world, arguably, legendary figures. They put so much bloody makeup on them that they looked
fake.
They looked fake. And so everybody just assumed that this was an AI video. And then Lego had to start releasing behind-the-scenes footage and things like that to prove that this was a real video.
This was so ironic that and to be honest with you, do you know what? Like, you can't buy this kind of PR, can you, really? So because they got the exposure from the advert itself, which was a great advert that it spent money on. But then they get this viral exposure of these videos going out where they've had to put them out of how the making of the advert to prove that the footballers were actually there and it was real.
Yeah.
And you can't, they've got to be so happy with that outcome, right? I would be.
Yes, but also I do think that it missed the human element a little bit, and I think if you just saw the video and you didn't get caught up in all the stuff afterwards, then I think you probably wouldn't. You would still leave that video thinking it was AI because they had so much makeup on, they looked fake, and it was basically
they looked like they made a Lego.
It was almost like it was in a completely dark room, and then the World Cup was in the middle, and they were sitting on a round table around the outside. They were taking it in turns to put a piece onto the World Cup, and the camera angles were switching, and the table was spinning, so it was heavily AGI or whatever the modern term for that is. There was obviously a lot of editing going into it, and they'd just done so much that it obviously looked like
it was so
overproduced.
AI, so overproduced. Yeah, it's just when you showed me this, it was just I just couldn't believe how much makeup they put on these footballers. Bear in mind, the reality of these footballers, when you normally see them, they're not wearing makeup. They're on a football field.
Also,
sweating,
Ronaldo,
rough.
His hair, what he was wearing, it was bizarre.
It was bizarre. Anyway, so. Well, that's this week's news story of the week. Let's move on to this week's deep dive, where we're going to talk about 3 clients that you told not to take any debt.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I did. Go on then.
So we've had 3 scenarios in the last 4-6 weeks where I've been doing board meetings with the clients that we've got, and I've had 3 clients that were quite eager to take on a loan of various sorts. And I've actually said to them, look, I really don't think that that's right for you. And I don't think that you should be doing that at the moment. So we're going to talk through those 3 scenarios, why they came around, and why I suggested that that wasn't the right route for them to take and what they should have done instead.
Okay, perfect. Let's start with scenario number 1.
So obviously we're not going to give any personal information away here. So some elements have been changed. But essentially the first client, they're very keen to grow their business. They're a brilliant service base, very, very niche what they do. And they're very, very keen to grow their business. They've got various people involved in the business, me and, somebody else that's supporting with the strategic element of their growth. And now they're like, okay, how do we accelerate this? We've now gone through that process. We know what we need to do. How do we just make it happen?
Yeah.
And so they were thinking about taking a loan to plug some cash flow into the business so that they can grow, take on new staff and things like that. However, on the face of it, that sounds the right thing to do because it's funding for growth. It's not everyday cash flow. But when we started looking at their numbers, they are not generating enough cash to repay that loan. That's the problem, is that the cash generation of the existing business doesn't fund the loan. So actually they'll be getting that loan and then they'll be using the loan to repay the loan until such time that the new profit drops in.
Yeah.
And that is the risk for that business. And so I said to them, look, actually, I don't think that you're quite ready for this heavy, fast growth phase. I think you need to keep going with what you're doing, but in an organic way. Yeah. And instead, actually, what we need to be focusing on is fixing the leaky bucket. Why the cash generation isn't in your business to fund this organically.
Quick question. Do you trust the numbers your accountant sends you? Or in fact, are they even sending you what you need at all? If your business turns over £1 million or more, you're already in the top 10% of UK companies. But here's the problem. Most accountants are built for the other 90%. They're built for compliance, not for businesses making big decisions on tight margins. So if you've stopped trusting your numbers enough to make confident decisions, head over to profitcashgrowth.com and book a discovery call. Let's get your business back in the room with people who actually understand it. Okay. How... It's also challenging because, they obviously identified an opportunity, but have they tested that opportunity? Like, if they put this money in, how confident are they that this money generates, business? There's nothing worse than putting a chunk of money in on an idea and it doesn't deliver it. You're left with the loan, but you don't have the business to support it.
I think the good thing with this business is it's been around a few years. They know what their addressable market is. They're a really smart business. The owners of the business are really switched on. They know the industry very well. They've worked in it for years. So actually, I do think this is one of those where it is a case of if you put the right structure behind it and the right process behind it, the money will flow. It's right. The market is just kind of there for the taking, if you like.
It's wonderful, really, because I don't think I've ever been in... It doesn't feel like any of our businesses are ever set up that way, that we've ever had the experience where you could just, if you pull that lever, the gold will come. Yeah. What a beautiful place to be.
It is a beautiful place to be, but what they have is they have an operational issue.
Yeah,
because
a delivery issue.
Well, it's not just a delivery issue. It's like the business model they've chosen, from the pricing down to how do they deliver to how they serve their customers, the customers that they choose, that's not delivering profit. Okay. So what they need to do is find out how they work, their internal business model fits with the external opportunity in the marketplace.
So this is one of those typical times where we say, before you scale, you've got to be careful that you're not scaling a loss.
Exactly.
Real problem.
And
so
therein lies the problem.
Scale a profit.
Yeah. So. Is actually this is a 7-figure turnover business, and by the time the owners of we see this time and time again, this could literally apply to nearly all of my customers. By the time they've taken the owners' dividends out of the business, there's no cash generation left.
Yeah.
There's barely any profit left in this business either. There's barely any profit, barely any cash generation. So actually, is this a successful business? And I think when you look at the statistics, we're saying actually this business could be way, way better than it is now. Let's focus on that and then grow. It's not to say they've completely turned their mind off growth. They're still focused on it, but they're just not getting that lending to go heavy and hard on it. They're just going to put a bit of focus behind it, but actually they're going to switch the majority of the focus onto fixing what's not working in the business at the moment.
I'm going off slightly on a tangent here because we talked about this the other week, and we talked about it again today about directors taking their dividends out and then effectively not having any cash left. Is that just cash, or is in profit left after that? Like I think my point is
this business.
Are all these people not taking are they taking a market salary and then we're talking about the extra dividends, or these dividends their salary?
No, the dividends is a salary. So just put in there.
So their business actually probably isn't profitable.
Yeah. So when we look on paper,
how do they replace?
When we look on paper at this business, so at the quarterly board meetings, we essentially cost in a market rate salary for any directors that are involved in the business, based on the hours that they're putting in.
And that does tell you that these businesses are profitable. So so it is okay.
But we're talking about a 7-figure business going down to about 50k profit in a year.
Yeah.
After that salary's in there, so. By the time they pay tax on
the margins aren't where they need to be.
Yeah, so the margins are not where they need to be. So what we don't want to do is go really hard on growth. Everyone's focused on growth. Everyone's really busy because inevitably when you grow hard, the other bits in the business creak. Like that's always the reality. You'll always focus on something else will break. So you'll focus on fixing that thing and something else will break. And that's the reality of being a business owner. So what we don't want them to do is be so focused on growth that there's no capacity or focus on fixing what is essentially a leaky bucket.
And is this just, we see we've never got to a point in our businesses where they've stopped growing and we see the same thing. Is this just the trade-off of growing a business? Like until the day you stop growing it and tread water, you're always not really going to be profitable because you're always growing it. You're always taking your salary out, whatever else. Your business is going in that direction. One day you could just stop and you could probably make the numbers look really good.
But it's also, you've got to listen to what they want. Because if this was somebody that was sitting in front of me and was like, look, I want to grow. I know that if I get to this turnover, the profit will be this and my sale price will be this. I'll be like, if that is your goal and your goal is turnover, which there's nothing wrong with that. Do you know what I mean? Like some people just like that and they want to be able to say, I grew a £20 million business. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If that's their genuine goal, let's go and get lending. Let's go hard. Let's not worry about the profit because you've told me that you don't care about taking that out of the business. We're going to get the growth and then we're going to fix the leaky bucket.
Yeah.
Fine.
Different strategy.
But these business owners sat there and they said, actually, we want to increase the profit. That's what they told me they wanted to do. We want to increase the profit. We want to be able to take more money out of the business and we want to invest in personal things like property and maybe getting commercial property.
So they are trying to generate cash through this business day to day, not an exit value at the end where not where they put everything off today. They're not like saying
actually this would increase their exit value more.
Well, you can have two bites of the cherry, obviously.
So what you've got to do is listen to what somebody's telling you they want, and they told me they wanted more profit. So more profit isn't going to come from growing your leaky bucket. More profit is going to come from fixing your leaky bucket. So let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that first. Okay, cool. That's great. Scenario 1.
Okay.
Second one.
Second customer. This is a customer that is very seasonal, actually, pretty much in the summertime, just due to the nature of the customers that they've got.
Ice cream man?
No, they actually work with a lot of schools and the school industry. Yeah. So during the school holidays, turnover basically drops off a cliff, is the reality.
Well, they're shut, so I'm not surprised.
So there's no money coming in. And so they were going to take a loan out to get them through the quieter months in the summertime. Essentially, they have this gap where they have maybe like 8 weeks of really stunted turnover because there's obviously a slowdown in the run up to the school holidays as well. But then come like September, October, it absolutely booms and they have 2 record months where cash just flows in. So they basically just had this really short-term cash flow issue where they needed to plug a couple of months. They could comfortably pay salaries to their staff and not worry about it. Yeah. So they probably didn't even need this cash. They just wanted it as a safety blanket and they were going to get a loan.
Right, yeah.
And they were going to pay a ridiculous fee to get this loan because it's unsecured. So there's no assets in the business to secure it against. So you have to pay a high application fee, high interest rate, etc., just in case. And I was like, no, this is absolute madness. So I said, look, 2 things we can do instead. Number 1, go and get an overdraft. You pay about £1,500 for an overdraft application. It's there if you need it, but you don't pay any interest unless you use it. Okay. That's the brilliant thing with an overdraft.
If you're just taking it as a security blanket, then only pay for it if you go into it is a better mechanism. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep. Second thing, let's just delay your VAT payment. Let's just delay your VAT payment HMRC this quarter. Let's get a time to pay arrangement. You get that breathing space. When you get to September and you see the money flowing in again, just pay them.
Pay it, yeah. Good idea.
And so that saved them. I mean, this would have been a 6-figure loan. Interest-wise and application fee, they would have paid probably £10,000-12,000 for this. So
good. So you've saved them £10,000-12,000.
Yeah, so it's a significant. Nice. We get the same result with a way better outcome for all involved.
Brilliant. And scenario number 3?
Scenario number 3. Okay, now this is a really interesting business. This is one of my favourite businesses that we're working with at the moment. Shouldn't have favourites, but I do. And they have just acquired another business. And obviously when you acquire a business, you've got payments to make to the old business owners, normally like deferred payments and things like that. And it wasn't a particularly cash-rich business anyway that they purchased. And so they were looking at getting invoice finance in that business to be able to fund the deferred revenue. Now that's actually really, really common when acquisitions happen, is that you pay the old owners
out of anything they can raise from the assets left in the business. Yeah.
And so your debtor book, your unpaid invoices, is a really easy place to go and look for that. The problem with invoice finance is once you're on it, it's like a drug, and it's really, really difficult to get off it. So I looked at their accounts and I said to them, actually, I don't think you need to do this. The cash flow gap is not that big. It's not the value of the entire debtor book. And you've got some unleveraged assets because this business had tended to buy assets with cash previously. So it had some unleveraged assets. And he's like, but they're secondhand assets. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You can still finance unleveraged secondhand assets, and they're quite significant assets that this business has got. So I said, look, I think that we should look at trying to get some asset finance and raise finance against these assets instead, spread it over the next 5 years. And you know that you're not on invoice finance. You've got a clear path out of this, that in 5 years you're debt free. And so that's what we're doing.
Great.
And the flip side of this is that they can pay, if they wanted to, they can pay deferred consideration to the old owners sooner with this chunk of money that would be released. And what that enables them to do is also save some interest payments that they now don't have to pay to the old owner.
Have you breached your own title of this podcast?
What's the title of my own podcast?
Well, it said why you told them not to take on any debt. Isn't that just to take on different debt?
Different debt. Yeah, different debt.
Oh my goodness. Trust and credibility through the floor, Claire.
So look, why are we talking about this today? Because I think that
because everybody seems to want to take on debt at the moment because they're struggling.
No,
they're growing or struggling.
I think that the reason why I wanted to talk about this today is to say that sometimes you just need a different perspective on things, because actually my suggestion for these businesses was not necessarily the right way. It's just a different perspective, a different result, a different outcome. And it goes back to that first scenario that I had of like, actually, it could have been the right thing for that business to do, to take on that debt to grow. It's not necessarily the wrong thing to do. It's just a different perspective.
It's just different options. I think you always say the same thing, which is most of the time they don't know what they don't know. So all you're doing is you're giving them the things they don't know as further options. They still might say, no, Claire, I want to do this one. That's fine.
100%.
But you've got different options for them. And actually, on some of these occasions, when you put the options out, they were like, that's a better option. I like that. Let's do that.
And, there's some very obvious ones where it saves them some money, because of interest payments and things like that. And others where it's not so clear cut, like the last example, do they get invoice finance or do they go get asset finance? Actually, the argument would be that, invoice finance, they really didn't want to be on that. So would they have been really motivated to get off it as quickly as possible? There's an argument for that. And actually the long-term cost would have been less if they'd gone for invoice finance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can spin it in lots of different ways. What this is about is kind of having somebody that understands the mechanics of and the impacts of all these different things, so you can weigh them up and see what the different outcomes would be.
Excellent. Great. Thanks for that, Claire. Shall we move on to this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra?
Yes.
Right, this week I'm going to sing the song, I am the hawk and the greatest golfer in the world.
But you're not.
What is it? What's this week's Profit
Cash
Growth Extra?
What channel is this on?
It's on Netflix.
On Netflix. And it's called
The Hawk.
Who's in it?
It's trending. It's got Will Ferrell in it.
Will Ferrell in it.
It's a proper out-and-out comedy. I mean, it's laugh out loud trying.
It is.
It's like Will Ferrell's old stuff. You remember he did what did he do? Like when he did the ice skating film, and he did loads of silly
stuff. Do you know what the thing with Will Ferrell is? I said to you about what I particularly like about this. I've never seen him act like this. Like normally he plays this kind of like goofy, lovable, like think about him in like Step Brothers and things like that, where he just plays this like goofy, lovable type of person. But here he just plays like a down out, drunk bellend basically. And it's just a brilliant way that I've never seen him before, and it's really, really good. It's kind of a little bit like imagine like Happy Gilmore.
It's a little bit like
that.
It's got
those vibes to it.
Yeah, and a bit Ted
Lasso-y,
but yes, stupider.
Happy Gilmore meet Ted Lasso.
Love it.
But obviously, it's got all the PGA branding in it as well. So It's all about golf. And
check that out on Netflix. It's called The Hawk. Thanks for joining us for another week's podcast. As always, if you think you might have outgrown your current accountant or feel like you don't quite trust the numbers as much as you should get in touch with Claire and the team at Profit Cash Growth. ProfitCashGrowth.com. You can book a discovery call, and you can also do our finance fitness scorecard on there. Whereas if you don't know what your current finances feel like and you don't know what you might need next, you can take that first, and that will just give you a report on your business. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to it, and we will see you again next week.